excited because today we have Suzanne Gose with us today. And you know what? We're talking about my most favorite subject on the planet, which is leadership. And I absolutely really feel a need in this world to create leaders with our students right now, and it's they want to be, and they are so ready. They see the problems in our world, and every parent I talk to, they're like, yeah, our kids know that this place is messed up, man. And they want to fix it, but they don't know how. So we have to prepare them. If we really want to prepare them for life, like the biggest thing I hear from all parents is we want our kids to be prepared for life, for success in life, for whatever they're going to be doing. We want them to be prepared. Well, guess what? Leadership skills is that preparedness.
Right.
It incorporates so many things. Well, I know Suzanne is going to talk about that today, and some of those things are incorporated in there. But I've been studying leadership and success principles and applying them and teaching them for about 20 years now. And it has been such a blessing in my life, both personally, as a spouse, as a parent, as an entrepreneur, as a friend, as just in the world with people, that I can't tell you anything better you can do with your kids to
Mhm.
help prepare them for future success. So, Suzanne's with us today, and Suzanne has a large background, just like me, in leadership and success principles. And she's also teaching teens, which I have too. We have that in common. So, we're teaching teens success and leadership principles. You know, one of the things, and I know Suzanne will probably talk about this in her story, one of the things that I love about teaching students and teens leadership and success is they see the immediate relevance. They
Yes.
see that right away, and they introspectively look at themselves and go, yeah, that's me. That's something I could work on. That's something I can get better at. And wow, when that happens, when you get kids hooked on that, my
Mhm.
son is hooked on that. It's just part of our culture in our home. And wow, it is amazing when you see your kids reading, like Suzanne teaches all the time, How to Win Friends and Influence People. An awesome, awesome leadership book. So, Suzanne, thank you so much for joining us today. Our world is in such great need of leaders. You have
Yes.
such a huge background in this area, and I'm so, so happy that you're teaching teens how to become leaders. So, can you tell us just a little bit about why you're so passionate about it, and what's why do we even need this in our world? What is the purpose?
Right. I think the biggest thing is having the option. A lot of kids, I think, feel stuck if they don't know how to do something, if they don't have a tool, if they haven't been given that opportunity to say, well, what is the other option? Then they become followers. And that's what we've seen, right? When we don't give kids the words, the tools, the experience, role playing, just having the background of, I don't have to. There are other options here that I can exercise. And so if a bad situation comes up, and 20 kids are going to go off and do this thing that your kid knows, and they have that little prick and they know, but they don't know what to do, and they haven't been given the tool or the words or just an experience to say, I'm not going to do this. You know what we should do, guys? We're going to do this other thing. And I guarantee 18 of those 20 would say, I also felt that. And so a lot of, especially with social media, and there's so many influencers out there, they're influencing our kids, and our kids don't want to be influenced in the negative way, but they don't know how to become influencers. So when you start thinking of leadership as influencers,
Yes.
goodness gracious, they all want to have a piece of that because that's their
Yes.
world, isn't it?
It is so true. And I think that they want to have influence in a way that really they see problems in the world, and they're like, man, like somebody should do something about that. And every once in a while it hits them like in their gut, like that's messed up. Like I
Right.
want to do something about that. I want to influence, like you said, in
Yes.
that way. And so whether it be something at school or something in your family, like, something in the outside world, in their community that they see, or even bigger than that, they see something and they're like, I just
Yeah.
that really is something that stirs my souls, what I say. And that is something I want to be a part of that change. And so having that, it doesn't have to be huge. I mean,
No.
for my son, it's an it's AI safety. It's bringing the
Mm,
world, as he's looking at it being really fascinated with AI, he also wants to keep it from taking over and terminating our world. So that is something that he's really passionate about, and he feels like I got to do this right now. This has
right.
got to be something that I'm in charge of. And I think one of the things that I love about leadership is that it goes right along with our education, in
Mhm.
our homeschool education. And I want to really touch on that with you, because homeschooling, you're also a homeschool mom, and you've successfully homeschooled almost four kids now. You've got three out there
One more.
are one left. And
Right.
so this is super exciting, because homeschool is the place where we can have the most influence and the most ownership, have let them have the most ownership of their education in their leadership skills, and kind of practice that. How have you seen that happen in your family?
Well, and I will say that is actually what made me become a homeschooler, is because I was a public school teacher, right? And then I stayed home to have the baby. And when we had our first baby, and then I thought, well, let me just teach. I teach Spanish. Let me just teach some homeschoolers. I've heard of these crazy people. And so let me just see if they want to pay for some classes, maybe, or some tutoring. And then when I met the students, I just was like, whoa, I did not know teenagers came this way. And they looked me in the eye. They treated me like a human. They were interested in me as an adult, as a relationship, as a friend, and they did their homework. And so I asked all the parents, okay, my little baby's 9 months old, and I have never seen teens ever like this. I've been teaching in public school forever and ever. And so what are y'all doing parenting wise? Teach me your ways, old wise ones. And every one of them just said, we just homeschool. And so I just want to kind of encourage everybody that's watching today. This is what can I do? If you're homeschooling, you're already doing it, because you've already pulled them out of that influential crowd, and they are catching how to treat people, how to show leadership, how to be resourceful, how to have integrity, justice, judgment, discernment, endurance, all those things that you wonder, how could I instill this? Simply by having them be around you more of the day and not around those who don't demonstrate those traits, you're already automatically doing it. We can amp it up, of course, by making some focused things. But I just want to encourage everybody that's already a homeschooler, you're halfway there. Like, if you do nothing else, you're creating leaders because you showed them leadership by saying, I'm not following this path. I'm going to give this other option for my family. And the kids already know there's public school. We're not doing that. My parents a leader. I don't have to, right? I don't have to. I can always create another option. So there's the good news. You're already raising leaders. And that's what made me a homeschooler, was because I saw these young kids, not young, but teenagers. And I went, these guys are different. And I'm talking across the board different. There wasn't
Yeah.
a thinker in the group. And when you get a public school classroom, I would say it was about half and half. Like, troublemakers were they kind of were over here. And then the kids that wanted to learn were kind of over here. And you had that one or two, right? Those one or two cream of the crop kids that were
Right.
just eager. And when I started teaching my private classes, all of them were those eager learners. I was like, how are we getting 100% cream of the crop kids? It was phenomenal. And so if you're thinking about homeschooling and wondering, let me push you into getting a cream of the crop kid by simply pulling them out.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned the examples, because it's so important and that's something I mentioned. If you haven't listened to or watched the previous podcast episode I did on Thanksgiving week, make sure you go back and watch that, because it was my love letter to you. And one of the things I talked about was that you already, by choosing to take ownership of your kids' education, and by choosing to say, nope, that's not for us, you are setting that example that's so huge. And I love that you pointed that out, because that's something that our kids can look to and
Yeah,
say, oh, I don't have to.
right.
I get to pick.
Hmm.
That's such a huge leadership principle right there.
Absolutely.
We all want our kids to be critical thinkers and independent thinkers, and that is part of that. So that is super exciting. You're already doing it, like you said, and that's so fun. I love that that's why you wanted to homeschool too.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. And I can tell you, because you taught elementary.
No,
So
no, high school.
high school, right, right, right. So yeah, and as an English teacher going, in high school, really, really I mean, man, you might have one or two in a
Right.
class by the time I was teaching. It was not that common. But yes, with homeschoolers, always say you can tell a homeschooler that's been homeschooling for their whole career or most of it is that they look you in the eye. They
Mhm.
don't care how old you are. They'll talk to you whoever you are, little kids, older, whatever. They'll play with anybody. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter because they have these communication skills. They have no like set idea
right.
of who they should associate with. So I love that. That's a great example. And you also mentioned some of the skills that are involved in leadership. So can you go through those a little bit more and just how do we like why is each of those important? Like maybe the top 5.
Goodness. Well, for each kid, I would say it's different, and in each situation, it's going to be different. But the cool thing to look at is every child, every human does possess some of these leadership skills. And so, whether or not it's endurance or loyalty or integrity, maybe those don't sound like leadership skills. You can play on those and say, okay, this is when we apply them. So, looking at the skill list, so we just did this last week. That's why I have the list in my head. It's the Marine Corps list, right? JJ did tie buckle is the acronym for it. And so you go from justice, judgment. I won't go through all of it, but anyhow, you can look it up. JJ did tie buckle, and you'll see, wow, knowledge, endurance. I always say that one because enthusiasm is another one. And you think, well, are those actually leadership qualities? And they're not necessarily all by themselves. But then when you put it together and say, when do I do it? That's tact. That's the T in there. When is this appropriate? And so just talking about those and focusing on them, even just defining them and asking your child, do you see, name a person that you see this in? It could be a historical person, it could be somebody in their life, it can be a family member or a friend. And then even in movies, right? Character traits. So we watch superhero movies a lot. We love the superhero movies. And so what does Iron Man have as leadership that Captain America doesn't? What does Captain America have that maybe the Hulk doesn't? And so you look at all these things and say, I want to aspire to those specific traits. And you can also then identify the weaker ones and play up the bigger ones, the stronger ones in each child. So really just having the idea in your head of, I want to raise leaders, again, that's a lot of it. And then you just pick and choose some discussions, and the child wants to please you, right? They really fulfill our expectations. Just like in public school, if I expected a group of kids to be awful, man, I
Right.
got it. If I expected my group of kids to be fantastic, especially in the
Mhm.
middle school years, man, I got it. And so if you expect your child to fail you, they fulfill your expectations. But if you
Yeah.
expect them to work hard and achieve, they all they want to do is fulfill what you want in them, and they want to please you. They're kind of built that way. They want their mom and dad to be proud of them. So giving them specific little tidbits of integrity. Oh, hey, I noticed that you weren't exactly honest the last time when I asked you, did you do your math? And I know you meant to do your math, but you hadn't done your math yet, and that's a big deal. Those little tiny lies can kind of build up. So let's go through that conversation again. And I know you didn't do it now, so let's just do a do over real quick. Hey, son, did you get your math done? No, I didn't, mom, but I'm going to go do it right now. Man, thank you so much for showing me integrity. You just built yourself up. I am so proud of you. Small things like that really gives them the ability to then own up when they don't have integrity in the future. Because guess what? We all do it. We all exaggerate. We all downplay our faults. And it's a lie. It's lack of integrity. And what a great thing to say. You can improve that area, every area, with tiny little, baby steps.
100%. Those conversations are so important and they're an important part of I think with homeschooling we get more opportunities to
Yes.
have those conversations, which is part of the beauty of homeschooling. So them just like you said being around and
Mhm.
having being together and having the ability to have those conversations is important. And
Yeah.
then also I love what you said about having having those discussions about what that looks like and just identifying the key ideas. That's something I do with my students too when I'm teaching leadership classes, or even with my son when we talk about what he's going up for a black belt pretest in martial arts here in the spring, and it's a big deal. Like it's causing him to grow, and or it's requiring him to grow. And so what we talk about is that identity. What does that identity of a black belt look like in your mind?
Mhm.
Like what are the characteristics characteristics. So that's one of the things we talk about when I teach leadership classes. It's the first thing we do is what are the characteristics? And we just have a little brainstorm and we talk and they end up getting a little deeper and a little deeper and a little deeper. At first they're like, well, they're the person that makes decisions. And then they're like, oh, well, they're the person, they have, and with homeschool kids are a little bit deeper a lot of times. So you can go a little further and say, yeah, they have integrity, they have character, they don't, they tell the truth, they have a plan, they, all of these things. And so just going through those ideas, and we have a kind of that visualization, you just close your eyes and see what that looks like, and now we have an identity that we can compare our daily activities to in our daily our daily decisions. So I love that, so important. And you and I both love leadership books. I
Yes.
cannot not talk about leadership books
Yeah.
because I've read so many
Yeah.
and I keep hungry, hungry, hungry for more all the time. And so we teach them to. What are some of your most favorite leadership books?
The one I always come back to is this little blue one. It is more published than any book in the whole world after
Yep,
the Bible. I mean, that's bizarre to me.
it
Like, so
is.
the Bible is number one, and then this book is number two. And so so How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. The kids will accidentally learn history. They'll accidentally learn economics. They accidentally learn so many things. But just having that book available to them, and I had my own kids. Each one of them, it was required reading. And then it wasn't until my fourth kid, I said, you know what? I think this would be really good with a discussion because his group of friends was rowdier, and he was in sports and they were just rowdier. And so I said, you know what? I want you to be able to discuss this with these really passionate, enthusiastic guys. And so I'm just going to offer it. We'll see. We'll see if anybody joins us. I was hoping for like 4 or 5 kids. We had the Community Homeschool Center out in Bryan, Texas. And so I just posted it, and I have 27 students.
That's awesome.
It was crazy. And it was just a 30-minute class. And so we would read a chapter a week.
How in the
And
world did you only keep it to 30 minutes?
it's amazing. So we did 11:15 to 11:45. So I called it the lunch bunch. And so bring your food, come on over. If you did not read the book, you may not speak.
I love
So, and so they had to do their reading, and then I would break them up into groups, and they would discuss what they read. That, and I would, show them. But basically, that's what Leadership Lab is now, except on Zoom. Because of course, my last child, that experience was so great for him. I want her to experience it, and so that's why Leadership Lab exists. It's completely selfish. I just wanted Liesel to have the same wonderful discussion with other teens, because then they get the chance to immediately practice turning the conversation back to others, actively listening, speaking less, asking the important questions. Leadership is all about noticing the other people, because otherwise, who are you going to lead if you're not paying attention to the people? And so here we are, put them in a group of peers that suddenly being a servant-hearted leader is super cool. And so 27 kids are walking around the Community Homeschool Center looking for ways to serve and finding out how they influence. And man, that group of 27 kids was like the heartbeat of the center, because they were like, Senora, I still Senora Gose, even though I tell them this is Gose, but because they were my Spanish classes too. But they would say, Senora Gose, I talked to that old man. He talked to me for 45 minutes because I asked him one question. And then, and he gave me $5 or he paid for my hamburger or whatever. So they were noticing immediately these tiny little role plays. So I would highly recommend, if you want to change your kid's life and have them read any leadership book, but this is the one I'm going to suggest, ask them to get one friend involved with them so they can experience that together and see the growth in one another.
100%. I literally can't even believe you kept it in 30 minets, because our leadership classes are like an hour and a half, and I could barely keep it to an hour and a half. We
Yeah.
had an hour last time, and I was like, people, I don't even know where we're going to get, because the discussions are so good.
Yes.
And that's what my classes are. It's we to go through like what parts of the chapter like really stand out, and what is he saying here? What does that mean for us? What do we do? What examples do you see of that in life? What are, like, how can people get better at this? What are some ideas? What all of these things, and they point that out. Well, my brother and I, we don't, we're always fighting, we're always arguing, and I guess, like I could think about, listening to him, or just
Right.
fun stuff like that. If it, you've got little kids, the older kids are much more wide thinking and thinking about a larger group, a larger community. And it's really incredible. And they get to pull from their history. They get to pull from history they're learning from different, like you said, economics, is different governmental systems, different people in history, different uh influencers in the world. We talked about, I think in our last class, we talked about like Taylor Swift, we talked about just fun things like that, and we're talking about leadership and influence in different ways. So I love that. I'm so impressed that you had it only in 30 minutes, but that's
Well,
especially with 27 kids.
yeah, but we kept it. So I think that's an important thing too, is that as parents, we do think of these lofty goals and we think I don't have time. And
Yeah.
so one of the reasons that we kept it so short is because anybody can do 30 minutes, right? You,
Yes.
you know, and so
Yes.
you're reading 5 to 6 pages a week, not even a day, 5 to 6 pages a week. So
Yes.
this elective, the parents could add on. It's such an easy light load. They did have to journal every single day. They had to journal, but just one sentence. And so again, baby steps. We're trying to create these wonderful lifelong habits, like lifelong learners. But those habits, if they're too lofty, we sit down in a pile and cry. But if we say, oh, just journal, just write one sentence, they're like, oh, I can do that. And then they become in the habit of writing every day. And some days they write paragraphs, but they come back and they read the journal and they have one sentence to share. And then that other person has to go, all right, I have to be interested. Okay, how do I be interested? Because they're not used to it. They're not used to being interested in other
Yes.
people's thoughts.
Yes.
And this creates a small time where you just have to fake it for 30 minutes. And that's part of adulthood, is faking interest sometimes. Then other times it turns into your career. You just don't know, but I want to give them the opportunity in small bites. So if you're a parent wondering, can I do this? Yeah, you absolutely can. 5-minute conversations, one question, 5
Absolutely.
pages. You don't have to even read a whole chapter.
Absolutely. Yeah, that book is definitely, it was a top 5 for me. I was part of a leadership development service provider program, and it was definitely one of our top 5, and we
Nice.
read it every year,
Yep.
and for that reason, so every single year. And that book has a specific way that you read it. It tells you how to read it, which is
Yes.
kind of annoying the first time you read it, and then you're like,
Yes.
"Oh no, I get it now."
Yeah.
So, I do love it. I do love it. You have to check it out. But there's also John Maxwell books are amazing.
Yes.
21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. There's another book that was written by founders from our top 50 leaders in the country at the time, were Orrin Woodward and Chris Brady, Launching a Leadership Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And some accessible books for kids there's a lot of really good ones. There's Stephen Covey's good. They're for kind of more practical principles, but they are leadership principles. So,
Yes.
but those are some ideas. There's a lot more where that came from. Holy
Right.
moly. But that there's some good stuff. But I can't let you go, Suzanne. I cannot let you go without us talking about this. So I've been thinking about, there's a lot of parents that don't feel like leaders. So
Mm.
I, even though we homeschool, even though I'm lost. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't feel like a leader. So if I'm not feeling like a leader, then how am I supposed to teach my kids leadership?
That is a great question. And so I would say it goes right along with every other homeschooling subject. I don't feel like a scientist. I don't feel like a math teacher.
Right.
And I'm not. But you know what I can do? I sat down with my kid, as soon as he was able to do math or whatever, we sat down with those DVDs and I pushed play and I sat alongside with him and I watched it, and he saw me model. I'm going to struggle a little bit alongside with you. You don't even
Absolutely.
have to be ahead of them. Everybody says, oh, well, you just stay one step ahead. No, I am not one step ahead. I am right there with him and saying, I'm not sure. Let's find out. And so that vulnerability of being honest, of you don't know everything, you're not going to be good at everything, but you can always, always learn. You can always improve your situation. And so that's another great thing. If you just want to discuss it just with your kid, my goodness, how many lifelong lessons are going to come out of those discussions where you ask your child, what do you think? And then they learn how to turn the conversation back to you. And it gives you a chance to say, yeah, I wish I had done X, Y, or Z differently. If I could be 14 years old again and I made this huge mistake, if I could do it different, man, I would go back and do it different. And that kid will be like, oh, I don't have to be perfect. My mom messed up, my dad messed up, but they're still awesome humans. So I would just say, and you don't necessarily have to feel like a leader to be a leader. So those are some
Yeah,
things, just sit down with them and learn alongside and just really enjoy, like you talked about, the time. I tell my students all the time, the only non-renewable resource we have is time. And I can't get this 30 minutes back. And I'm so glad I spent this 30 minutes with you. Like, what a wonderful choice I made. I'm so happy.
absolutely. That is so true. And it really is true, you guys, for everything. Like she was saying, that's what homeschooling is. So you don't have to feel like you're an expert in everything. You do, I mean, none of us are. I was an English teacher. She was the language teacher. She still is a language teacher, but that doesn't mean that we're amazing, like you said, scientists and mathematicians. So
Yep.
my son knows way more about science, and he teaches me all the time.
Yes.
So he knows more about history. He knows more about geography. Like he's sometimes I'm like, "Where's that?" And he's like, "Oh, seriously? Come on over here
Right.
to the map. Let me show you." He's like, so it's something that you do together, and the more that they see you making those being transparent and making
Yes.
those mistakes now and in in your everyday life. So I always say one of the best things I've ever done was to build a business, start a business while I'm homeschooling,
Yes.
because my it's hard. And one of
Yeah.
my, seeing my son, or having him watch me go through that and go through the ups and downs and learning and being hungry for
Mhm.
learning
Mhm.
and watch and growing and making mistakes and going, well, mess that one up. Yep, and still living through that, because part of leadership is also understanding that failure is part of the deal, part
Yep.
of growth, and it doesn't mean anything. The only failure is when you don't learn from it, right? So you have
Right.
learning from it and doing better the next time, or even just if it's a little bit. So that's something that is really huge. I love that we talk about this today. And so, Suzanne, what is one thing that you could say we could do right now? And by the way, these books make great read alouds. I'm going to say
Yes.
that read alouds and family read aloud. You know how I feel about that. It's most so,
Yes.
so, so important. And that is such a great way to learn together and
Mhm.
then also have some really good discussions.
Yes.
Really good
Yeah, and you can
discussions.
just watch, like, well, I guess for the one thing was, I would say, find an audio version of it. It's free everywhere. Just find the audio version of it, push play, and if you're like, I don't want to get into a big thing, just push play and for 5 minutes, just start, and then push pause and discuss. Say, okay, what stood out to you? That's it. You don't have to have a plan. I mean, if you want to
Oh,
outsource
no.
it,
Yes.
you can always, you have Cami, you have me, you have other leadership opportunities. If you say, I would rather just sit back and learn from them, we are here for you, but you don't have to. You can totally push play, listen, pause, and ask, what stood out to you? And then boom, then do it again 5 minutes later, 5 minutes the next day, 5 minutes the next day, and move forward. I would say that's a pretty simple thing to do.
Yeah. So if our kids don't learn these leadership skills,
Mm.
what what does preparedness for life look like?
Yeah, I think it's really scary because they do feel trapped. And I think a lot of public school students, as well as just college graduates, even feel like they have to X, Y, or Z, simply because, like, we pulled our kids out of the culture of public school. I was wrapped up in that culture as a public school teacher. I'm sure
Right.
you had the same idea. It was like you weren't allowed to not have something on the schedule. You always had to have something that kind of gave you value. Like, it gave the fact that you were going to attend or help at whatever thing you were going to do, that somehow defined you, and that was your identity. And so once you
Mhm.
pull your kids out and realize that nobody's watching you, nobody's paying attention to what you're doing, you can truly do what you want to do and spend your time how you want to spend it. That by itself is important, because high schoolers, I think they have to, whatever it is, and you don't. There's no have to. And so I think without leadership qualities and, critical thinking, and just having that opportunity to say, what do I see is important for my life? And the other thing is, their lives are not going to match our lives. You're talking about how our kids know so much more than us. Our ceiling is their floor. I mean, of
Mhm.
course, like, that's the goal. They should be better at everything. And so my mom, she would say, Suzanne, you're such a better mother than me. I was like, Mom, wasn't that the point? Like, you taught me, and so I achieved more than you did because your parents taught you to the best of their ability. And so here we are raising these kids that are way better than us. What a
Thank
wonderful
goodness.
thing. Thank goodness, right? So, so yeah, I think without that ability to have integrity, endurance, loyalty, recognize those character traits as good ones, really allows them to kind of be vulnerable to other people's priorities. And I don't really want to follow other
100%.
people's priorities. I want them to follow their priorities. Not even, I don't want them to follow my priorities. I want them to follow what they believe is right for their life. And without leadership,
Absolutely.
I don't know what else he would do.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And ultimately they won't, and we're being a little bold here, but it's really the truth
Mhm.
is that we've seen it happen in because we both taught in public school. We both taught, high schoolers. We saw them when they graduated
Yeah.
and they don't live to their potential.
No.
They don't ever until they get that. And we're not saying they have to get it, all perfect now because that's not we didn't.
Right.
And so we're still growing, we're still
Right.
learning, but that's part of the lifelong learner there. But if they don't get the hunger for that and they don't have a context around it and are working towards it,
Yeah.
then not only, yes, I 100% agree, they're subject to
Right.
other people's boxes is what I say. So when
Mm,
they're followers, so if they're a box checker, they're always going to look for other people's boxes to give them boxes to check.
right.
And so that's if we're thinking about being a leader, then we're creating our own boxes for ourselves. And he's
Yeah.
like, well, I love boxes. You can love boxes, but you make your own boxes.
Yeah. And if you
And
want to
yeah,
check the box, but not knowing that you have the ability. And I think that's what it
yes,
is. You don't
yes,
know that
yes,
you
yes.
you can.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, if somebody you love like fits your bill, then great,
Yeah. Go for it.
But that's something and just having the choice for sure and
Mhm.
knowing having the confidence that you can. I
Mhm.
think that's a lot of what we're talking about here. This has been such a great conversation. We could talk for 900 hours about
We
this.
could.
I know we can. And we're going to do a lot more talking about it later too. You guys are going to see her again in a few months and she's going to talk more about language learning and the connection with the brain, which I really want you to listen to because I've been fascinated. Obviously, I'm an English teacher. Okay, let me geek out. But I've been fascinated with the brain and like that language idea for a long time. And so this is going to be something you won't want to miss. I'll let you guys know when that comes out. But right now, I want you to make sure that you grab Suzanne's free offer that she's giving us, which is a guide to how to learn anything. What? I mean, that's pretty nice. So, Suzanne, can you just tell us a little bit about that and where do we find it?
Sure. Key to learning anything. And so you can probably click the link. It's got a free discount code. Cami25 is the discount code. So you can click through there and get a free ebook. I'm adding the audio too right now. So I'll be uploading the audio chapter by chapter for you. But it's all about learning styles and every single subject is broken down for you. So if you're like, oh my gosh, this kid learns differently than me, I have a guide for you and little tiny ways, little baby steps. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? And so, yeah, easy, free. It doesn't make sense to not download it.
It doesn't. That's amazing. I mean, everybody needs this. This is amazing. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Suzanne. I know that you guys are going to hear a lot from her, more coming in the future. And we've gone through a lot today. So if you feel a little bit like overwhelmed, if you're not really sure where to go, definitely contact Suzanne. You can contact me and make sure you download that free guide and definitely feel like this is something I want to just maybe just take that book and just take the audiobook and start listening to that and just start your journey yourself and then you will want to share it, which is going to be exciting. So thanks Suzanne again for joining us today and we will talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.